How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Picture this. You've just finished a week at a new job where your mission is to protect a company's most sensitive systems. You're at the airport, ready to head home, and you realize something is missing.
Not your keys, not your wallet, your badge. The badge that grants access to everything.
I get to San Jose Airport and I start following my checklist. Is my driver's license in the correct location? Do I have my phone fully charged? Is the cord in the right location? Is the front pack of my backpack ready to go with all of the things that I'm going to need? My passport, my work badge. At which point I stopped and went, where's my work badge?
This is Tarah Wheeler, a well-known security researcher whose job is to keep companies secure.
The badge is gone, completely gone. And I realize I have lost my internal badge to get into the most sensitive areas of this company. My first week, when it is my job to keep the company safe, and I have to call my boss and tell him that I've lost my badge.
Even the best design systems can be short-circuited by the smallest mistakes.
A lost badge, a default password, or I think what's probably more common, a moment of distraction.
Today we're asking, in a world of complex cybersecurity systems, are we focusing enough on the human element?
Stick around to find out. Welcome to What the Hack, the true cybercrime podcast. I'm Adam Levin.
I'm Beau Friedlander.
And I'm Travis Taylor.
When we think about cybersecurity, it's easy to picture firewalls, encryption, and complex technical systems. But as Tarah Wheeler, a cybersecurity leader, CEO of Red Queen Dynamics, and Senior Fellow of Global Cyber Policy at the Council on Foreign Relations reminded us, sometimes the biggest threats and the best solutions are human.
Wheeler's work is about asking hard questions, creating systems to fix vulnerabilities, and ensuring that when things go wrong, as they always do, folks are ready to respond.
But cybersecurity isn't just about digital systems. It's also about the physical world. That's where Deviant Ollam comes in. He's a physical penetration specialist and expert lockpicker who tests the limits of physical security to help companies strengthen their defenses.
Olaf, as a security expert dealing with both physical penetration and cybersecurity, you live in a world that's both analog and digital.
Most certainly. Most certainly. You really can't divorce the two. In fact, I would say you can't divorce the three. I'm a big fan, as are many others in this industry, of reminding people that security exists kind of on three surfaces that mate together in unique ways. There's sort of physical, mechanical. Then you have digital, which can mean your network security or your ones and zeros or your electronic locks. And then you have the human surface. All of those surfaces have different roles to play, and it's nice when they're all in layers. You think about Jessie Singer's book, There Are No Accidents. She talks about the Swiss cheese model of security and how if you have holes of Swiss cheese, like a single slice of Swiss cheese, there might be a hole that something could pass through. But if you stack a couple slices up, well, then maybe they will occlude the holes. And you stack enough slices of Swiss cheese up, even though they have holes, you can eventually get to a point where no light is coming through. There's no direct through line vulnerability. And when physical security, digital security, human security, when they're all stacked on one another, none of them will be perfect, but ideally they're all covering each other's back. Many times, though, we substitute one for the other. We say, well, the digital side of that machine's not too good. We'll put a lock on the door. Or that lock is a little bit sketchy, but we'll have a guard come around every so often.
Which of those three types of cheese has the biggest holes, in your opinion?
Ooh, that's so interesting that it's never one uniform answer. Very different environments. You might have an environment where the people are actually the strongest layer. which we don't, we always love to say, oh, well, humans are the weakest link. And there's truth to that saying. It comes from a place of validity. But there are some environments. In fact, I was on a job where it's an agribusiness job that we did. The human element was stronger than everything else at that facility, and it shut us down at almost every turn.
I remember when I first got my house, I asked a locksmith to come out and put a lock on, and I said, is this a good lock? And he said, it doesn't really matter. And I said, why doesn't it really matter? And he says, because locks are for honest people. If a thief wants to come in, they're going to get in. And he used the example of taking a reciprocating saw and just cutting along the side of my door and cutting an opening in the side of my house to get into the house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is a flaw of not thinking so much as a flaw of communication and framing. A friend of mine, Bruce Schneier, has a really great line that he's used in the past about the word. Let's start with the word security. To be secure, right? To be secure can mean an actual objective standard, like I am behind a high concrete wall and there is an angry dog who obeys my commands and I'm stroking the butt of a rifle that's latched to me with a large magazine. Like, you can be objectively secure against certain threats. But you can also say, well, that person over here, they're secure. Maybe you're talking about the emotion, the sensation, the idea, the concept of I feel secure. And of course, many times those two things are in tension. People want the feeling of security, even if they're not objectively secure. See, for example, an easy punching bag would be, the nation's airports, a lot of security theater there. Or there are people who actually are very secure, people in, I would say, most modern cities. We live in a very safe time. Violent crime is going down, but people don't always feel secure. And because of that, they make a lot of bad risk assessment and make a lot of bad purchases and decisions. If we extend this problem with framing, I will put it to you. Instead of the word lock, let's go with the word fence. Okay? You might say a fence. Well, fences are for honest people. Yes and no. A fence, even a 3-foot tall fence, a little white picket neighborhood fence, easily jumped over by anybody of moderate physical means. That fence is still doing a job. It is demarcating, it is communicating, it is indicating a property line. It is communicating, hey, this is the space out there that's public, but inside this curtilage, maybe this isn't your space. And it is incumbent upon the public to behave in a way that they think is best. Now, you'd like people to respect that fence. The fence also does a job in terms of if there's a stranger in the yard, they can't really just say, oops, I'm just cutting through to get to my car. Oh, okay. But you jumped over a fence, right? You didn't just step around a bush. Oh, I'm not supposed to be in here? No, you're not supposed to be in here. So what that I would call is a symbolic fence at that point. But you could say, well, fences are just for, honest people. But if you look around, again, let's say our nation's airfields, let's say military bases, a high value facility that's doing specialized research and they don't want people coming and going, they're going to have a fence. But it's definitely a different fence, right? It's going to be 7 feet tall, maybe with a topper. It might be buried or trenched so you can't tunnel under it. Yes. So the question is not, well, fences are just to make people stay honest. It's what fence are you using? And I would say the problem in our world is that many times we are putting that 3-foot white picket ornamental fence around the high value target. You're using a symbolic lock, as it were, on an actual high value asset. Symbolic locks exist in our world. How many people have been in an office where you're not allowed to touch the air conditioning, right? It's behind that little plastic thing with a little derpy wafer lock on it. Any one of you can jiggle that lock open. But you're not supposed to. You know that. But if we take that little derpy nothing lock and put it on a locked panel that controls, I don't know, all the power in the building.
The nuclear football.
Exactly, nuclear football. Anything like that. That is the fault of the design. That is a bad framing, where you're using a symbolic lock to perform a security role.
A picket fence is one thing, but what about the high-risk stuff we might encounter more frequently than a military base?
There are definitely airports, and many people have been in airports where you've seen this, where you get in an elevator to go between different levels, go up to the Sky Lounge or the whatever, and the baggage levels down here. Look on the panel, you'll probably see other floors that might be locked out. Some of them are really interesting. They say, control tower or airport ops level or something like that. Some of these go between the sterile zone and the insecure zone, like the baggage piers down at the tarmac. This elevator is objectively not supposed to go between these various, very different zones without authorization. But years ago now, I put out a talk with a fellow named Howard. He and I built this lecture, it's just called elevator hacking, right? There are a lot of ways to get an elevator to go somewhere that you're not expected to let it go.
Because they have the derpy little locks?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There are key switches. There are lockout cutout switches. There are different modes of operation. If you put an elevator into non-automatic mode, into maintenance modes, into emergency responder modes, it will go to these other floors. And I have footage of elevators in airports where you can see the fire jewel is lit. Like that elevator is on fire service. And even though it has this multi-factor chip and pin and biometric morpho reader on the wall, it's still going to go between different zones without, quote, authorization. Well, yeah, you are going with authorization. The authorization is high. I have this little $8 key on eBay, and fire code says the elevator has to do this.
And this is the part where we say to Beau, please put down your pen and stop taking notes on this stuff.
One of my favorite thoughts is like, how do you hack these things?
Gonna really just dread the answer, but are we talking about past elevators, or are these still security weaknesses that persist?
I'm proud to say that kudos to the institution involved. That airport did get word about this. And the one I'm thinking of, if you return to that airport, which many of us go through this airport very frequently throughout the hacker world, they have different key switches in the elevators that I have seen. So improvements are incremental and marginal, but you take the wins where you can.
But that is a good example of old technology in spaces where there's new technology that's sensitive. And I imagine a lot of what you do is finding the weakest point of protection for entry.
Oh, sure. I mean, a lot of our work is for higher tech companies, data centers and the like, ISPs. There's sort of a convergence there of you need security awareness. You need to be mindful about security, which plenty of organizations just aren't. And you need discretionary budget to be interested in testing and evaluating your security, which plenty of institutions don't have the money. You might say a bank. A bank has all the money in the world. But as far as mindfulness, well, they say, we have vaults, we have time clocks, we have all these things. Like, we don't need to, we'll test maybe with an internal team. We don't want to have external people. Or you might have a hospital environment. Medical environments, again, they're very aware of the need for security. They're very aware that their security might be lacking. But a lot of hospitals are cash strapped because we do healthcare very wrong in this country. So the data center, ISP, tech sector, they are the ones who both are aware of security needs and have the money to hire teams like us. So in data centers, there have absolutely been times where I have bypassed a door, been able to mask a sensor so that an alarm doesn't go off, or just sometimes you just say, all right, let's just not care. Let's just let this door register an alert and see what happens. And let's test the human element. And either an employee or a guard comes around a little while later looking to see, who's in the data hall? But we're so ingrained into thinking that an intruder would be behaving in a certain way, either causing mayhem or stealing things. But if they encounter a person who's dressed in the company polo, has a badge that looks like a legit badge, and I'm using a key to unlock a rack because all the server racks in all America's data centers are key to like, and I'm checking some lights and I lock it back up. And that person will just kind of look down the hall. No, that's not it. That's another person working. And you just become invisible.
So this is more like social engineering even than having a set of tools that you're using to open things up.
That's definitely a part of it. If you're doing your job right, you want to give the client and the target opportunities to find you, opportunities to challenge you. We make the sparring analogy a lot, like in martial arts. If an instructor does nothing but blast someone right and square in the nose and that person drops to the mat and they say, okay, good lesson, right? Next week, same time?
Yes.
Yeah, they didn't really learn anything. You want people to start hitting you back. So you want to say, if I do this, what are you going to do? Now I'm coming at you this way. Can you block it? So ideally, you want to give the client and the customer more opportunities and say, all right, I'm going to break in this building. I'm going to try this way. What can make it a little bit noisier, but a little more obvious that something's wrong? And you see what happens when they respond. And they have to learn, their staff has to learn, that guy you saw and you walked right by, Did you actually validate who they were? Did you check credentials? So yeah, we try to give them a chance. We'll say, let's break in this time, but do it with a different tool that's not quite as covert. Maybe they'll notice.
After the break, we're staying at the airport, but this time it's not about hacking elevators or symbolic locks. It's about a different kind of vulnerability, one that doesn't need tools or gadgets to exploit.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Okay, so before the break, we talked to Deviant Ollam about the layers of security, physical, digital, and human, and how they need to work together.
He showed us how two gaps in physical security, like elevators and symbolic locks, can turn into major vulnerabilities. But he also reminded us that security isn't just about locks and fences. It's about the habits and the training of the people managing those systems.
Which brings us to a key question for today. In a world of complex cybersecurity systems, are we focusing enough on the human element? Which takes us back to Tarah Wheeler's story at the beginning of this episode. Tarah, you were telling us about this moment at the airport when you realized you'd lost your badge. Can you walk us through that again?
I start following my checklist. Is my driver's license in the correct location? Do I have my phone fully charged? My passport? My work badge? Where's my work badge? And I stopped and I looked again. And I set my pack down on the bench and I looked again. And then in the middle of the concourse on the Minetta, I took everything out of it. And I laid it down and it looked like it was a reveal video on YouTube. I had everything laid out. I mean, we're talking lady products and lipstick and extra clothing and books and technology scattered all over as neatly as the badge is gone completely.
And that badge wasn't just for getting into the building. It gave access to the most sensitive parts of the company, right?
Yes. My first week, and I have to call my boss and tell him that I've lost my badge. And I called him and I got his voicemail, and it's like 20 minutes since I've been sitting in that restaurant across the street. And I was like, I got to tell you what just happened. And I was near tears, honestly. This was incredibly humiliating. And I was like, I think I know what happened. I'm going to solve the problem. Get right back with you. I call the restaurant and my badge is under the table in the restaurant across the street.
At that point, with your badge being in the wind for a little while, do they all need to be replaced?
That's the interesting question. Nobody knew, because what I didn't know was where to report this. I found the badge and I could have just asked somebody to step across the street and just go sit it on my desk or drop in. And here's the problem. I don't know what's happened to that badge in the meantime. I don't know if someone's picked it up, if they've cloned it. It's a simple RFID badge. So it's now my job. I have to do this. I have to report it to security and say, look, this happened. I don't know what happened. You should probably shut my badge down in the interim and take a look at the logs inside of it if anything happened to it. And they did. And the problem was there was no place to report it.
Well, you should have just reported it to yourself. That buck could have stopped there.
That's a tempting thing. And I thought about it. And what ended up happening was by 3 days after that, the company had a new policy and process for what to do and how to get your badge shut down when you know where it is, but you don't have your hands on it. Because there was no process for that ever before. There's thousands of employees in this company and no one had thought to create this process yet. There was a new alias to report it to, and there was a way to log this having happened, as well as a freebie for the first 3 times you did it and followed the process.
This is where the whole idea of checklists comes in. Systems to catch things we might miss.
The reason a checklist exists is to trigger your mind to solve a problem systematically, to cover as many things as you can. And a checklist in absence of understanding why that thing exists is meaningless. The truth is that most of the issues in security really aren't about me sneaking into your computer or installing something. Or if I did, it's because I engaged in some way with you. It's likely that there was some element of human contact at this point that made that possible. And it might have happened in a way that people didn't understand. It might have been a shared password. It might have been a conversation with someone. It might have been downloaded data from a breach. But it is truly about people. And it comes home to us when you say, can I get hacked? I do everything right. The answer is, if you drive perfectly, can you guarantee that you'll never get into a car accident? You can have external failures. You can have someone else crash into you. You can have something go wrong with the car, right? Like there's no way to encapsulate everything that can go wrong. But what checklists are there for is to make sure that you as a person don't miss something that you should remember. Because human brains can't remember everything all the time. It's literally why we have databases and computers. You can't do everything with your brain, right? You need an exocortex. Like, who even remembers phone numbers anymore? So the questions that I get about how do I keep myself safe often look like making sure that you followed a simple set of steps to check in with yourself about what feels safe. Now, the reason this matters to me is not just because I have parents and I get phone calls from my parents, as all of us do. Hey, I just got this odd phone call. I hung up. Was that the right thing to do? And the answer is always, yes, it is the right thing to do. I don't care if it's me, hang up. So the answer is there's a way to check in with yourself using a checklist where you say, if someone was saying all of this stuff to you that you're seeing in this email or getting on a phone call, if they just walked up to you randomly in the grocery store and said the exact same stuff, would you do it then? And if the answer is, oh, that's kind of odd. That's a little weird. I don't think I would, right? And if that's on your checklist, then you've got an excellent first step to figuring out if you should do the thing that someone's asking you to do.
Yeah, so the checklist is sort of, it's nuanced, but it is the complications we're talking about when, you say, is it really that complicated? The complicated part is life.
Yeah.
Life is happening. You're somewhere, you drop your badge. That's the complication. And so the checklist is like, I'm leaving the house. I have a caterwauling cat, a dog that wants to eat the cat, a child that's hungry, and an appointment I'm late for. Do I have everything? A checklist comes in handy.
It's not just that it comes in handy. It's that we trick ourselves. We trick ourselves into thinking we've done what we need to do. And a checklist gives us that moment and that excuse to do not only the right thing, but to step back and say, I think I did everything right. I'm just going to go and make sure. And if you have those checklist items for yourself when it comes to things like cyber scams, things like, if someone said this to me in a grocery store, would I think it's a good idea? Am I about to be talked into revealing something that I've been told never to give over the phone? Like the 2-factor code that was just sent to me in a text message. Someone calls me up and says, can you just read that off to me? If you've been told that you're not supposed to do that, but somehow you think it's a good idea this time, and you look at your checklist, and it may just be a 2-item checklist, nothing other than don't talk to strange people on the phone. And if I think this was a bad idea in person, I probably shouldn't click yes in an email either. That's going to save you from 90% of what's wrong in the world, honestly, on the internet. And if you look at that, you're like, oh, I want to make an exception to that just this one time. Just ask yourself this question. Make the third thing on your checklist to stop doing this thing right now, get a call back or get a check from someone else, and just don't do it for 15 minutes. Just don't do it for 15 minutes. Get off the call, revisit it in 15 minutes. If you still think it's a great idea, 15 minutes from now, after having talked to somebody who's a smart person, who's there with you, if you've got just some check, stop and ask yourself, if someone's trying to make you do this and you've got, and you say, I just want 15 minutes to think about it. And they say, oh no, I need it right now. That should be a giant warning sign. That is a screaming alarm. Exactly. There's nothing that has to get done that fast, honestly.
So if you receive a suspicious sounding email or call, if you lost your security badge, or even if you're just riding an elevator, security isn't just about the systems we put in place. It's about how people interact with them.
Whether it's the gaps in physical security or the inevitability of human error, it all comes down to layering defenses and paying close attention.
And that brings us to the question of the day. Are we doing enough to factor people, the real question mark in all of security, into the way these systems are built?
Find out after the break.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtuo coffee machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your Virtuo pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to help you make the most of your summer with Michelob Ultra, a superior light beer worth playing for. Play for it with the guys when you're competing to see who can sink more birdies on the golf course, because winning tastes even better with Ultra on the line. Play for Ultra. Fill your fridge with Michelob Ultra this summer. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
When you do a job, what is, in your estimation, like the most shocking response you ever got to what you're trying to do to help somebody keep people like you out of their facilities?
There's different kinds of shocking. The real worst one that you hope to never have is a situation where you deliver a bunch of findings, you demonstrate impact, and it doesn't move the needle. You come back a year later and they say, well, okay, maybe we'll do something about that. Maybe we won't.
It's kind of like the most dangerous words in the English language when uttered by an inside guy is, don't worry, we got this.
And that's why transparency is critical. If you make a mistake, like losing a badge or falling for a phishing scam, the worst thing you can do is cover it up. It's not the mistake that's the problem. It's what you do about it.
That's what your checklist does. It gives people a tool to catch mistakes before they spiral out of control.
Exactly. But it's also about accepting that mistakes will happen. No one is unhackable. What matters is how you respond. Do you have systems in place to minimize the damage and learn from it?
Maybe someone lives in an incredibly safe area. There's just really no likelihood that they're going to be targeted. They're an innocuous business with no political enemies and motivations, and all their employees are happy and would never do anything to hurt the company. Maybe for that company, spending an extra, I don't know, $200-$300 to upgrade every single badge reader because their credentials are very outdated. Maybe that could be money better spent somewhere else. I'm not the client, and at some point at the end of the day, you have to put faith in the client. But there are sometimes it's a head scratcher where you think, man, all right, you're going to do what I guess you think is best, but we'll talk to legal if you have a breach or a problem, an incident, and this report's in a drawer.
People who think that what's happening on the internet, the idea of crime and fraud happening on the internet isn't real, are the same kind of people who would be appalled at the idea of committing mail fraud or calling someone up and trying to trick them out of their life savings or running, a psychic scam or something along those lines. Fraud is fraud. It doesn't matter if it's happening via a mailbox, via a telegram, via, a phone or an in-person conversation at a bar or via email, right? These are old human crimes just given a new pathway to your door. That's it. And so convincing people that if you had the sense to understand fraud when you were 20, ma, dad, if you had the sense to understand what fraud looks like then, just apply those same rules to what you're seeing here. You don't get to skip out on the responsibility you have to protect yourself because you think the internet's not real, right? I'm dealing with some of my own issues right now. So anyway.
Well, but just remember, every parent tells their kid, don't talk to strangers. Don't talk to strangers. And yet, with the internet, all of a sudden it's stranger. That's not a stranger. That person shares my interests. They're not strange, unless I'm strange. And, people just have a tendency
to
try.
You are strange.
Well, I am
People are
strange.
strange.
I will confess I'm strange.
We talk about humans as a weak surface in security, but frankly, humans are the best surface in the defense in the world. Connect with networks of other people and friends and colleagues. What scares me is nothing to do with the security industry. It's to do with the cold indifference of the universe and the systems in which we live. There's a talk I have called Lawyer, Passport, Locksmith, Gun. And it has to do with if you're desperately in need of any one of those things because there's a problem in your life, that's not when you should be looking for one of those things and trying to figure it out then when you're in a moment of crisis. Having a good team of people around you, having people that you already know and trust who you can turn to during an incident, that is far more valuable than any widget or tool or procedure. Yeah, there is no cavalry coming. We are the ones who protect us. We look out for us. We keep us safe. having people around you that you rely on and that can give you good advice when you're in a moment of crisis or threat. So you, the panicky animal with your brain half distracted, are not trying to make all the critical decisions then.
Bottom line, security isn't just about firewalls, badges, locks. It's about people.
Whether it's a misplaced badge, a suspicious email, or a symbolic lock that doesn't actually work, the weak link in security is very often human. But as we've learned today, humans are also the best defense against threats.
Deviant reminded us that layering security, physical, digital, and human, is critical, but it's the habits and awareness of people that make the system work.
And as Tarah said, mistakes are inevitable. No one's unhackable, and no system is flawless. What matters most is how we respond, whether we have protocols, checklists, and trusted people to help us recover.
Yeah, and fraud and security breaches may look like newfangled things, but at the core of it, they're the same old crimes with modern tools. Recognizing that and preparing for it means applying the same instincts and critical thinking we use in real life when we see a 3-card Monte game on the street.
And remember, there's no cavalry coming. It's up to us, friends, colleagues, and communities, to look out for one another and to stay vigilant.
Security isn't about perfection. It's about being deliberate, proactive, and prepared for when things inevitably go wrong.
So if you ever find yourself missing a badge, riding an elevator, or facing a phishing email, take a moment and pause. Take a moment, right? Just pause. Check yourself. And don't forget, security starts with you. Okay, and now it's time for our tinfoil swan.
Our paranoid takeaway to keep you safe on and offline.
Black Friday and Cyber Monday might be behind us, but online shopping season is far from over. And with more of us buying gifts or even, stuff for ourselves online, the risks are, they're still there and you got to be careful.
Yeah, and the risks don't disappear once the holidays are over either. Data breaches, phishing scams, fraud, they're year-round threats, especially as we rely more and more on online shopping for everything from gifts to groceries.
A CNET survey found that 71% of us are still making basic but dangerous online security mistakes. We reuse passwords, skip two-factor authentication, or say passwords in unsafe ways. It's like hanging a "Please hack me" sign on your accounts.
You don't want to forget post-holiday scams. Phishers love sending fake delivery updates or bogus, there's a problem with your order, emails. They're just, you're waiting for a package. Also wait for the email looking to get you to make a mistake.
We can't really afford to be lazy about online security anymore. Start by never reusing passwords. If that sounds overwhelming, use a password manager. It creates and stores strong and unique passwords for every account.
Also enable two-factor authentication wherever you can. Yeah, it's an extra step. It's like using a deadbolt on your front door. Bad guys hate it, but that's the point.
If you're notified of a data breach, or even if you haven't, freeze your credit. You know what? Also, if you're me, freeze your credit cards when you're not using them. Because you can do it on almost all the apps now. And it's like one little extra step, but you never, ever, ever are going to get that alert that somebody's using your credit card. It's kind of cool.
And stay vigilant with your email. If you get a message about a late package or an order issue, skip the link and go directly to the retailer or shipper's official app or website to check. Phishers are counting on you to panic click.
The holiday season might be peak shopping time, but cyber risks don't stop when the decorations come down. Protect yourself now so you can shop with confidence year-round.
Check yourself, man. Guard your accounts. Be smart.
Before you really wreck yourself. You check yourself before you really wreck yourself.
And that is our tinfoil swan.
What the Heck with Adam Levin is a production of Loud Tree Media. You can find us online at adamlevin.com and on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Adam K. Levin.
Behind every great meal is a person with a story to tell. Hear them on Culinary Characters Unlocked, the podcast that reveals the lives behind the food. Hosted by me, David Page, Emmy Award-winning journalist and creator of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, as I talk with everyone from culinary legends to mom-and-pop standouts about the creativity, grit, and passion that shape the food we love. Follow Culinary Characters Unlocked on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Behind every empire are the people history tried to forget. Lost Roman Heroes tells the stories of the remarkable characters who shaped Rome from its mythical beginnings to its final fall.
Each episode blends armchair storytelling, sharp historical insight, and a bit of humor to bring these lost figures to life. From generals to scientists, from rebels to empresses, from priests to politicians, these lost Roman heroes have one thing in common.
They stood up for civilization when the bad guys threatened, and in doing so, they changed the course of human history. If you're into history that's vivid, surprising, and deeply human, this show's for you.